I'm joined in the studio by Drillminister, who you may or may not be familiar with, a drill musician, who has announced that he intends to stand in the London Mayoral contest, a candidate for that contest. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, Sheila.
Now, listen, you're wearing it. Some people will be watching online, some people won't. So you're wearing a mask as well as your specs.
Yeah.
Tell me about the mask, because that might put people off.
It started as my artistic expression because there's a lot of facial recognition right now, and people feel as though their rights are being people are intruding on their rights. So that was what was happening in street music quite a lot.
But the facial recognition, we learnt the other day, it is going to be rolled out in public places.
Yeah, that's another thing.
But it's currently just in private spaces.
Yes, it's in private spaces right now. But that's another thing that going for mayor, one of the reasons that's really pushing me, because facial recognition, there's a company called the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're in America, in Maryland, and they held, experiments with the facial recognition. They did 1,089 algorithms, and they found 100% of the time there was miscommunication when it came to the coloration of somebody. It's like taking a photo.
Darker skin, less accurate outcome.
Less accurate. So a lot of people can be misplaced as being a criminal when you're just a guy going to... And
is that why you started to wear? It's a kind of, for people who can't see it, kind of balaclava kind of mask.
It wasn't really the reason why I started to wear it. It's because of a lot of my political views. I love history. A lot of people don't know that. And I look at a lot of revolutionists and people that try to make a stand for the people. And I've noticed a common denominator amongst a lot of my revolutionistic heroes, that is, they never get to finish what they started. Thus it be by death, be by a mysterious murder, whether it be by just disappearing off the face of the planet.
But why did that lead to a mask? I will move on from this. I'm just fascinated by it.
It led to the mask because my views, a lot of people that know of me, how I came about just over a year ago, where I put Boris Johnson, a lot of other politicians, Jess Phillips, a lot of people on blast for their views on what they had said about drill music and how it perpetuates violence, and how the words have more power on the youth's minds and the people's minds of the country than actual actions. So I took their words and I put it into a song.
It was on Channel 4,
the whole song basically reiterated what they were saying, not what I was saying. And then people were in shock because this was the worst drill song ever made. It was some of the most violence anyone had ever heard. Jess Phillips with "I'll stab you in the back, not knife you in the front." All of this wasn't no 15-year-old, no 22-year-old.
So they argued back that they were speaking metaphorically.
Yes, but
you say what to that?
I say to that all music is metaphors. When somebody says "I believe I can fly" in a song, does that literally mean he's got wings, or does it mean he's speaking metaphorically? So we can all speak from a metaphorical standpoint, but we need to know what is reality and what is fiction. When somebody has done an action and they've been caught for that action, that is reality.
So because I've met you and we've had a nice hug actually when you first came into the room, which is very nice. You can never pass up a hug. You're not frightening to me, obviously, but if I randomly came across you in that mask, I would be alarmed by it. So
I wouldn't be shocked if you were.
No, that's fine. So. Why are you putting a barrier in the way of yourself so that people, particularly because you're looking for an election, why the barrier?
There's no barrier here. People fear what they don't understand. I'm here to make the British public and the citizens of London that I want actually vote for me. I want them to understand that I'm here to make them understand their fears. So you're making yourself deliberately a bit scarier looking? I wouldn't even say deliberately making myself scary looking. I'm deliberately being who I am, true to what representation I have been for my peers and my community group. I don't want to come into this political rat race and start to be part of this politician's facade, this thing that they do, wearing the suits and spreading lies. I'd rather wear a mask and tell you the truth than have my face exposed, and because my face is exposed and I have to be held accountable for everything I'm saying, lie to you, which is what a lot of politicians seem to be doing, and especially to the youth. And I think my revolution in politics is to make people from not like your background, people not like my mom's background. My mom's a fellow listener of yours. She's a fellow listener of Victoria as well, Derbyshire.
Yeah.
And there's a inclusion there where you guys have an understanding. You've grown up in a certain generation that have seen Thatcherism, certain things. You guys you're conditioned to understand politics. Our generation, it comes up from the children of Blair. We don't understand politics. We've been sold lies of politics. We grew up to the Iraq War. We just know about killing people. We just know about war. That's all we've ever seen. We've just seen war from England.
Thatcher waged a war, didn't she?
But maybe not the same war.
No,
this
not.
war's taken millions of lives. We've seen, and maybe Thatcher's war.
So you just feel that politics over the last 20 years, 30 years hasn't spoken to young men, young women from your background?
Nobody cares. No.
Okay, you talked about, let's move on from the mask then. You talked about people fearing what they don't understand. I'm here to make them understand what they fear. That's a bit of a slogan for you, and you said it just a moment ago. What do you think people fear?
People fear things, like, obviously what they don't understand. I'm from a demographic. I'm from a background that's not mainstream. It's not in the public eye unless it's been scrutinized. You don't see a drill artist with his mask or without his mask unless he's been scrutinized in the British media. I'm here to like turn the stone on his head. I'm here to like show people that you can't judge a book by its cover, because I'm here to really make a change. I'm not trying to change, although I want people of an elder nature to vote for me, and I hope that they can see that my intentions are pure. Obviously, I understand there's going to be a big discourse between me and them. I do understand that they're not going to identify with where I come from.
Well, that could be true of somebody like Rory Stewart wandering around London.
But Rory Stewart's a knob. It's a different thing.
Hang on, no, you're on the radio in the middle of the day.
When I say that, I don't mean in a rude way. I just mean like a doorknob. He's like a doorknob. You can twist him, you can turn him. He's a doorknob. He's a person that he's out here for himself. Rory Stewart doesn't represent anybody from my background.
Tell me then,
nobody from where.
As policy, you've talked about dealing with people's fear.
Yeah.
What are your policy priorities when you go out there canvassing? What will they be? Because you're going to meet all kinds of people.
All kinds of people.
So what are your policy priorities?
My policy, my main motto of my policies are: Londoners can't abandon each other. I don't want us to abandon each other. I feel as though we abandon each other way too much. We abandon the homeless. We have 170,000 like secret homeless people. So people sleeping on people's couches, people that are rough sleeping. Rough sleeping, we have an estimate of over almost 20,000 in London, rough sleeping. This is like potential voters. These are people that should have a place of stay. I see something by HSBC the other day trying to aid people that are homeless to have a temporary address so that they can have an
bank account,
because they need to have a bank account to have a form of employment. At the same time, I want to implement better relations between the communities and the authorities. Obviously, this is something people think I'm going to shy away from, because maybe I look like the criminal you identify as a criminal, but I'm not. I'm here. I'm somebody that understands felons, understands reoffenders, understands people trying to get back into society that have been left out. There's a lot of sex workers that are never mentioned in politics, that people forget these people, like they don't exist.
You mentioned a few moments ago that you like history.
Yeah.
And what came into my head was there's a head teacher from Michaela School. I don't know whether you're familiar with her at all. Catherine Burblesing, who she feels that the artists like you. No, she never mentioned you specifically. Yeah. I don't think, certainly not to my knowledge. But artists like you and drill music and that gang culture does a disservice to young black men and young black women, because actually they should be looking, in her view, at the wider world. Whether that's history, including black history, of course, whether that's history, whether that's geography, whether it's a desire for to know more about science or technology, whatever it is, and that this focus on one thing is limiting. What do you say to that?
I say that I actually appreciate her having a viewpoint on the situation to begin with.
At all.
Because the situation is this. If I grew up in Cambridge or I grew up in Shropshire and I made music that was my environment, I'd be talking about rowing boats. I'd be talking about being in orienteering, things like this. This would be my music. I actually live in a South London estate where Like, I have people that do heavy substance abuse at my
Stabbings.
foyer. Like this, I have the dustbin men don't come sometimes for 2 weeks. Like, people leave mattresses outside. I live in what we would call the dire straits of the UK.
So you're telling that story.
I'm telling that story. If she wants me to talk about Shropshire and talk about Oxford and things like that, then move some of these inner city kids and let them see that lifestyle. Let them see how affluence, what it looks like.
But perhaps she might argue, or any teacher might argue, that absolutely those are real difficulties that have to be addressed. Of course they are, by all of us, not just by you, by all of us. But that wider world can exist wherever you are intellectually.
It can exist if you've got the internet. But there's only so much a person can talk about from the internet, from their bedroom, when your mum's working like maybe for Greggs or something and bringing home an average wage, and you are living what would be classified as, it's still good living compared to the third world or something, but you're living an average life.
Your access is different.
Your access is different. We don't have access to certain things, and I always say this. I believe the only way is Essex. And Made in Chelsea had a massive part to play in British culture in changing the narrative of how the youth actually look at affluence and how they actually look at what they want to attain. Before we had the Only Way is Essex, before we had Made in Chelsea, there was no London riots. So just put that together and connect the dots. A lot of children saw their parents working, slaving in factories for like maybe 20, 30 years and didn't see any affluence. And then said, wait a minute, there's this Instagram blogger who's selling shoes and she's flying to different countries every week. Why am I going to be mummy? I'm going to do it the other way. And this is how a lot of new school kids think, because they want things fast, because the world is moving very fast.
You've obviously, just because you've decided to run for London Mayor, I presume you have a view on the current London Mayor.
I believe the current London Mayor, people always want me to bash him. I don't agree with bashing that. Like, I come from a background where it's kill or be killed. We're fighting for our life where I'm from, just to put out music. So these opponents, I don't even see them as opponents, to be honest.
But you regard him as an opponent.
I mean,
he's a political opponent.
He's a political opponent. Yeah, Sadiq Khan. He's done his thing. He's put in place a benchmark, but the benchmark to me isn't high enough, because I believe his heart lies at trying to be the first Asian Prime Minister. I don't believe London is where his heart lies. I believe it was where his heart lied to get the promotion and the notoriety to take him to the next stage, but I don't believe he actually truly has his heart on London Mayor. I believe I'm the realist Londoner that is in this election. I believe that there is nobody that can identify with the highest in society to the lowest in society and actually identify with them and level with them and make them feel like an equal other than me. I believe every single other person in this election is going to be talking down to their constituents and talking down to people to encourage them to vote for them. I don't think they're ever going to sit in a homeless shelter for an entire day and say, how can we get all of these 100
and you're
men?
confident you can sit in any room, high, low,
doesn't
and everything
matter.
in
I could
between.
be with Kofi Annan. I could be with the UN secretary. It doesn't matter who it is. I could be with Bob the Builder. It doesn't matter who it is. I will make sure they understand my point of view.
Okay.
I will get my point of view across, and I'll let them understand that I'm here to make a positive difference for the 4-year-old who's watching me from the television or watching me from the YouTube and says, why has the masked man got the bravery to do this? Because I'm trying to change the world.
Okay,
that's why.
well, it will be interesting to see whether that mask becomes a problem for you in your campaign.
It's already a problem.
We'll
It's
see.
already a problem.
All right.